Bella Hughes walked briskly to the bus stop, pulling her cardigan tighter against the early morning chill. Her cleaning shift had been long and wearying, but the exhaustion seemed to lift as she thought about the day ahead. Months of meticulous saving had led to this, a day's escape from scrubbing floors and dusting shelves to something entirely different, a private vineyard tour and tasting. She clutched her weathered tote bag, its straps fraying but still reliable, containing a small lunch and a printed ticket to the exclusive experience. When Bella arrived, the vineyard sprawled before her like a scene from a painting. Rows of grapevines basked in the sun, rolling hills framed by azure skies. The tasting area shimmered with polished glassware and neatly set tables. She felt an unfamiliar flutter of excitement, even as her plain thrift store dress and scuffed shoes whispered that she didn't belong. She'd tried practicing the wine terminology in front of her bathroom mirror, but here, doubt crept in. She whispered under her breath, repeating terms like bouquet and acidity, though they seemed to slip away in the ambience. As she approached the entrance, the scents, the earthy aroma of aging oak, the sweet tang of ripening grapes, enveloped her. Bella hesitated, then stepped forward, determined to participate. But as she began to inquire about the day's itinerary, the host, a tall, impeccably dressed sommelier, cut her off with a condescending sneer. "It's tannins, not tannings," he laughed, volume loud enough for all to hear. Muffled giggles spread among the well-dressed patrons. The brief exchange left Bella paralyzed with embarrassment, her cheeks flushed with heat. She felt dwarfed by luxury, judged by eyes that regarded her as less than. She was supposed to be here for joy, but standing there, she felt like a trespasser. The laughter seemed to echo and expand, nestling in Bella's bones, filling her with an unfamiliar hollowness. Her fingers tightened on the frayed handle of her tote as she attempted to retreat without drawing attention, a near impossibility, it seemed, in a place designed to showcase life's finer details. The snickers and sidelong glances of the vineyard guests stung almost as much as the host's initial jab, each one reinforcing the alienation. This was supposed to be a celebration of triumph, however small and personal, a brief reprieve manufactured from months of careful financial choreography. Her steps were slow as she backed away, surrendering the bright strings of ambition wishfully tied to the idea that she might carve a niche in this world for even a single day. Outside, the sunlit vineyard blurred through a film of tears. She blinked back with determination. She spotted a rustic bench partially shaded by grape arbors and sank onto it, ignoring the curious stares of passers-by. Shielded beneath the tender embrace of the vines, she allowed herself a moment to surrender to the surge of emotion that demanded acknowledgement. As she sat, a flood of memories overcame her, each one reminiscent of the sacrifices invisibly tethered to this singular indulgence. Waking hours before dawn to ensure spotless cleanliness at her job, piecing together every spare coin for this endeavor, relinquishing indulgences as small as the occasional block of chocolate. It had been her goal to treat herself for enduring so much with quiet resignation. A fragment of her grandmother's voice flickered through her mind, recalling those tales of simple joys found amidst the struggle. Her grandmother had once said, "No matter where you are, Bella, continue to savor life's offerings. They'll keep you afloat." Such was Bella's intent today, to stand on new soil and become wider in spirit for it, yet she felt she'd been swept away by the very breeze that should have carried her forward. The vineyard represented her rare tether to the world of possibilities, a place she'd driven past countless times, whispering a promised goodbye each time that one day the life beyond those gates would not remain a distant dream. Perhaps she'd subconsciously paid tribute to a family tradition of raising a glass to triumph over struggle. After all, the vineyard itself felt like an emblem of overcoming adversity, with nature itself pushing through seasons, transforming sunlight into flavor. As tears dried and resolve rekindled, the significance of her choices seeped back. Each purchased night in, each meal foregone was for this private slice of where contemplation met wonder, a place where life's beauty percolated through every action. Yet, today's longing had led to nothing but an unwarranted communal dismantling of her self-worth. She absorbed it all anew, seeking clarity through the veil of emotion, but the weight of every disparaging whisper seemed insurmountable. Amidst internal reflections, Bella began to notice something at the periphery of her awareness. The eyes of passers-by occasionally filled with something akin to understanding. There, between whispers of veiled amusement, a few sympathetic nods were exchanged quietly. Perhaps, not all present at the vineyard were oblivious to the injustice rendered. For a moment, their tenuous support felt like a balm, a reassurance that the world was bigger than a single point of ridicule. But rather than capitulate to shame or anger, Bella stared into the distance, tenderly gathering herself. Her gaze fell upon a family enjoying a picnic at a nearby patch of grass, and a child's laughter caught the wind. She found comfort in their innocence, a rejuvenation emerging as the sun lowered towards the horizon, preparing to dip beneath it. It would not be her story to live in shadows or adapt to neglect forever printed into memory by this vineyard visit, she concluded solemnly. There would be other moments to drink life deeply with meaning, other places where acceptance wasn't doled out based on perceived social worth. For now, accepting momentary defeat, Bella stood once more, smoothing her thrift store dress, reminding herself she had faced greater dissatisfaction victoriously. Gathering her tote with renewed care, shoulders squared against fresh adversities, she walked back toward the path leading off the grounds. Each step on the verdant grass echoed with determination, whispering that despite the day's sour notes, the song of hope would still hold merit tomorrow. Her cheeks were no longer flushed with humiliation but rather shone with remnants of quiet pride, and newfound resolve, too, it seemed to grow. Behind her left the opportunity for reflection transformed into resilience. Once believed haven or not, the vineyard's exquisite views and flavors wouldn't be diluted by one distasteful encounter. Instead, they became the departure point from which she would find the encompassing tenacity to forge ahead. The world still teemed with hidden abundance waiting, she thought, and maybe she hadn't seen the last of this particular vineyard either. Bella knew that it hadn't escaped her grandmother's teachings that day, nor had it diminished the subtle celebrations rooted in grit and intention towards brightness. Despite sorrow and struggle, the embers of her inner light only gently flickered against the winds of derision. As long as morning promised to rise, Bella would continue to exist in its silhouette, strengthened, unyielding, and every bit as deserving of life's moments of wonder. As Bella walked away from the vineyard, whispers of laughter and the host's dismissive tone began to fade, replaced by the peaceful hum of nature surrounding her. She hadn't ventured into the drawing close of despair but rather wrapped herself in a newfound shield of silent determination. Her feet padded softly on the sun-dappled path framed by tempestuous grapevines reaching toward the sky. Though thoughts still swam with frustration, her senses filled once more with the gentle chorus of birds and whispers of a warm breeze. Despite her intent to return home, a yearning pulled Bella slightly off course. A desire to understand and perhaps impart her consciousness, if only to the vastness of the scenery, tugged her toward a shaded area reminiscent of silence stolen from chaos. Meandering further into the enclosure, she inhaled deeply and allowed the crisp air, thick with the aroma of burgeoning earth and aged wood, to do its best to rejuvenate her spirit. Midway down the hedged path, her thoughts were interrupted by the sight of a staff entrance, the door slightly ajar revealing an unexpected glimpse inside the vineyard's inner sanctum. An unsettling scent tugged at her until intrigue drew her closer, propelling her toward the storehouse nestled behind freshly laden trellises. Inside, daylight shimmered over slick containers stacked high, draping light and shadow in odd but elegant patterns across barrels of fermenting grapes and wine bottles yet to be labeled. A potent odor, too harsh and chemical to be native to the vineyard's natural aroma, wafted through the open doorway. Cautiously, Bella stepped forward, her instincts piqued by the muddled notes borne on air. It guided her toward an imperfection in the rustic facade of bucolic beauty. Her eyes scanned across rows of wooden barrels lined with precision, but the scent dragged her vision lower, unveiling the true source of dissonance. Nestled in shadows, irreverent and spilling onto slush-dappled floors, rested a cluster of barrels leaking their toxic contents. The sticky remnants of what might have been improperly stored grape chemicals or cleaning agents pooled in forbidden trails, evaporating slowly into air thoroughly academic to her senses. The scene was chaotic and somewhat hidden behind a facade of splendor. Against her better judgment, Bella drew closer, peering at the labels affixed, or ones where they ought to have been, blank but for smudging, faded prints labeling anonymous, hazardous intents. The sight rankled Bella deeply. She knew too well what harmful chemicals improperly handled could do. Like memories painted with her late grandmother's battles with product-laden environments she worked within. She stood, a witness to negligence shadowing aesthetics imbued in privilege long oblivious, when a dull thud followed by anxious murmurs interrupted her thoughts. A glimpse of staff members passing through the adjacent corridor didn't elude her until one remarked loudly, and with ill-disguised irritation, that they had no choice but to expediently handle the barrels by cutting corners, in haste demanded by vineyard management. The voice fading into wordless assurance that neither the vineyards nor patrons would suspect such measures sealed Bella's decision. Bella's pulse pounded steadily, blood now warmed by the resolute possibility blooming against unspoken discourtesy. She couldn't simply leave this oversight buried beneath the vineyard's surface-level charm. Neither her tendency towards silent endurance nor wishful unfolding now palpable, woven with fortitude nurtured from injustice, would allow it. Quietly redirecting, she extracted her phone from the depths of her tote, her fingers dancing with breaths of caution across its screen. Bella snapped a series of pictures, a gallery adept in rendering truth more than fleeting opinions wrought in confrontation. The whispers of uncertainty dissipated, making room for a single truth. Well-bottled beauty could never supplant the ethics essential within it. Meticulous in details captured, Bella compiled her findings into an email assembled with the unique grace post-seasoned resoluteness. Addressing it to the local health inspector's office, she described the oversights witnessed, not sparing description crafted from patience and sincerity. While she crafted words, she forged a narrative anew with layers born from vigilance and compassion, each articulation folded in restraint harbored by one enchained and principled decision. Each moment gathered within pursued wholeness supped on newfound autonomy as her fingertips pressed, send, feeling akin to threads beyond view reconstructed from earlier, remade stitching. As though leaving an imprint farther rippling. Satisfied that duty described as her own drew from depths unstated, and yet deeply intrinsic, Bella finally turned back toward the main path home, the orchard left behind. Gone from view, her resolve lingered quietly amidst trailing vines. Determination gathered and expanded as she endeavored ever onward, carrying more than just stories from an impossible day woven anew, for no luxury triggered bravery quite like doing what was just in the face of adversity. Her hesitation had melted away among courage supplemented by the adversity inherently familiar to her soul. Though Bella moved quietly without fanfare, the promise between open fields and sky stretched far, it garnered weight beyond any burdens shared alone. Her spirit did not seek revenge but substance. The unintended immersion into narrative shifted to one that breathed change amongst the unseen reverberations she stepped most assuredly toward in life's ephemeral dance and dares to hope, inviting progress. By afternoon's end, her life retained its simplicity, except now threaded with light granted when uncommon resolve meets quiet determination, it found within planted where few had expected to see beauty actively grown. Bella's steps carried her away from the vineyard, but her spirit seemed to linger, swirling around the echo of what she had uncovered. It was as if a latent strength had unfurled within her, born in part from the humiliation she had endured but rooted deeper in a determination to seek justice when so few might have. The late afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the fields as she made her way homeward. Meanwhile, at the vineyard, the serenity of its picturesque setting was suddenly broken by the arrival of health inspectors. Their appearance, discreet yet unmissable, sent ripples through the bustling activity. Whispers rippled through employees and guests alike as the inspectors, clipboards in hand, began their assessments. The laughter and divulging whispers that had earlier surrounded Bella were replaced by a tense curiosity as the inspectors moved with purposeful strides. News of the inspection traveled fast beyond the vineyard's boundaries, hastened by quick fingers and smartphones that shared the unfolding drama with others eager for tales of intrigue. Social media buzzed with updates, amplifying minor events to major scandals in the online universe where voices multiplied. People were appalled at the idea that a place so revered could harbor such negligence beneath its polished facade, and the catalyst for this revelation was none other than Bella Hughes, the quiet woman whose resolve had been underestimated. Her actions sparked conversations across digital platforms, each comment melding into a chorus that stood either in support or curiosity about the humble cleaner who held the vineyard accountable. Stories of disgraceful customer service, similar to Bella's experience, emerged as others began to vocalize their interactions with oppressive exclusivity and indifference at establishments presumed elite. Bella's courage amplified theirs, each voice resonating like threads woven into a tapestry fighting wider injustices and igniting remarkable empathy. Within the vineyard management, chaos erupted as they scurried to address both the immediate ramifications of the inspection's reveal and the burgeoning public relations nightmare taking root. A hastily structured statement was issued, downplaying and deflecting concerns, but it barely held back the tide of judgment forming against them. The attempt to minimize the gravity of the circumstances backfired, only serving to inflame the passions of the newly attentive public. Each ripple of outrage seemed to add fuel to the fire. Fines descended upon the vineyard, levy after levy, documenting various infractions from negligence in chemical storage to inadequate health protocols that bellied under the weight of presumed elegance. With a scathing spotlight now turned their way, the vineyard was temporarily shuttered, a striking testament to the impact of truth when wielded with courage. In an unanticipated turn of events, the sommelier who had demeaned Bella found himself suspended amid pressures of an internal review. Public sentiment surged against his haughtiness and the behavior that had ripped apart an attendee's solace for mere laughter. Amidst all this, Bella was caught between awe and disbelief at the overwhelming flood of messages that began to pour in from her community and beyond. Initially anxious, she was soon overwhelmed by gratitude. Their words echoed with warmth and empathy, lauding her steadfastness and thanking her for standing up. Her actions had done more than just reveal hidden faults within the veneer of prestige. They had sparked a dialogue about respect and safety. Her anonymity had inadvertently unraveled the thread that laid bare a culture of apathy disguised within the wine-laden ambience. Each thankful message was a symbol, a reassurance that despite adversities, she was right to have acted instinctively and with integrity. Bella found herself enveloped in an unexpected yet comforting hive of support, much as if she were resting within a protective community intent on fostering change. Inspired by her defiance, others stepped forward. Patrons who had felt diminished or patronized in similar settings now found the strength to share their experiences. Their words added layers to Bella's stand for justice, their unified narrative sparking a collective demand for fairness across other such havens of exclusivity. The effect extended beyond the local stage and wove its way through the societal framework, calling for accountability and shedding light on the injustices beneath the seemingly perfect. Somehow, Bella had become a beacon without chasing titles or accolades, proving her worth lay not in sparkling facades but in her courageous choice. Bella remained humble throughout the tumult, her soul unaffected by this newfound notoriety, save for flutters of satisfaction detecting how her ordeal was not in vain. Perhaps it was enough to show that every voice mattered when shaped by principles greater than silence. It left her with contemplative musings on how even modest lives could move mountains when endowed with bravery. Through threads of online communities and whispered conversations, the vineyard and others like it were awakening to introspection. Change was palpable, floating like mist being drawn into internal realms. At last, manuals on etiquette and decorum consistent across servant and served, a karmic reflection returned in measured steps towards progress. With the vineyard closed for necessary improvements and policies reassessed, Bella's solitary action had unwittingly catalyzed fairness not only for herself but for anyone yearning to partake in beauty without barriers. Her own humility and newfound sense of purpose reverberated through realizations and revelations, ensuring her dignity had risen intact, now nestled in the reassurance that she was where she truly belonged. Each echo born in freedom now cascaded against resistance, empowering others beyond the vineyard's gates and within, buoying a narrative into one where respect burgeoned anew, canvassing changes on the freshly woven landscape of shared growth. In the weeks that followed the whirlwind of events at the vineyard, Bella Hughes settled back into the rhythms of her life. Rising before dawn each day, she returned to her role at the community center, committing herself anew to the routines that sustained her. The tasks were the same, a parade of mops, brooms, and buckets, but an imperceptible change marked Bella herself. She moved with a quiet confidence, poised as if her steps traced out paths of purpose etched upon the ground. Yet, beneath the familiar surface, something had shifted. Her presence exuded a gravity previously unrealized, formed by the events she had unwittingly set in motion, a new integrity that spoke of courage and conviction shaped by unexpected challenges. Each room she cleaned gleamed anew under her careful touch, mirroring the shared resolve settled within her spirit. One morning, as she prepared to leave after her shift, a simple envelope waited for her at the break room table. Her name was written neatly on the front in ink, penned by a hand unfamiliar to her. Curiosity drew her fingers to retrieve it, and as she unfolded the contents, realization bloomed softly, carrying her heart along with it. It was a handwritten thank you letter from the local health department, offering heartfelt gratitude for Bella's integral role in unveiling the vineyard's unsafe practices. They acknowledged her pivotal courage and commitment to public well-being, an honor she'd never sought but felt deeply appreciated for nonetheless. Their words were an echo of all the encouragement she'd received, a tangible form of acknowledgement that her actions had helped real people. The letter was now a cherished piece of memory where her hope had reclaimed its voice. Meanwhile, the vineyard was undergoing significant changes. Signaled by her instinct and galvanized by public outcry, the alterations were essential for earning back the trust of those it depended upon. New policies ensured that the recklessness she had witnessed would not recur, and a quiet promise echoed publicly in earnest to uphold respect and safety for every guest crossing the threshold. Bella knew of their attempts to reconcile, a formal apology letter received among piles of mail offering regret for any insult experienced. She accepted the apology graciously, not to absolve but as a testament more to herself that her journey wasn't defined by one fleeting moment of adversity. Her forgiveness tethered not to obligation but the wisdom that she had nothing to gain and unwillingness to move forward from past disdain. She hoped they meant their words, and for herself, moving on required no further action. Her influence had sown seeds widely. Now, the vineyard employed policies aimed at establishing open doors and open hearts, while workers received training to better value those who graced their spaces. Observing these fresh starts, Bella knew she'd become a bystander to new growth shaped partially in the making. On occasion, as she walked past the vineyard en route to errands or home, Bella couldn't help but notice the symbolic sign sprawled in elegantly minimal script, committed to safe, respectful hospitality. Work continued outside the grounds, hints of construction and restructuring visible amidst piles of building materials sundering old habits, reborn anew. Back in the quiet confines of her home, Bella sipped tea at her kitchen table, sunlight pouring in through the windows to warm her skin like whispers of reassurance. The room was a sanctuary of small treasures collected over time, each one holding meaning beyond their simple service or decoration. As she sat, her phone chimed softly, bearing a new message. It was from Ella, a fellow cleaner who had heard Bella's story and reached out to convey admiration, confessing how it inspired her to address unfair treatment within her workplace. Her courage amplified by Bella's legacy. A ripple created spanning further than the vineyard's shadows, finding corners unexpected. Her actions reverberating sweetly beyond only herself, Bella smiled, heart fortified by the community of shared strength knitting its way ever broader. Another day, a local newspaper invited Bella to contribute her reflections, preferring words offered from someone whose perspective bore true weight and narratives still turning in hearts yet unmoved. She considered the offer thoughtfully, recognizing the power of her voice to impart subtle change with the wisdom she had gathered. An opportunity to share the essence of ordinary courage in extraordinary circumstances that echoed within each closed title unopened, yet still bound in verse. Despite the stream of positivity and recognition, Bella remained unchanged on one level. Dressed simply, with a resolute demeanor, peeling back layers to expose authenticity drawn from life well lived. Laughter bubbled easily when embraced by friends, shared within warmth cultivated since adolescence where truth navigated freely. This was always enough. In brief moments of reflection, peace enveloped her, satisfaction not in changing the world, but in knowing choice stemmed beyond expectations rose irrevocably. As the day wound down, Bella found herself gazing across the horizon where the vineyard nestled beneath golden expanses. Nightfall settled as she traced paths of what might yet come. New policies, meaningful efforts reflected on return visits she need not make to see those changes flourish, the vineyard transforming toward holding wholeness and beauty honest at last. Her gaze settled upon tranquility, where courage brewed beneath status lay true in moments bonded through a longing heart. She breathed in the melodic crescendo of tomorrow, folding it gently in warmth. It mirrored peace burgeoning within reimagined life evermore quite sufficed. No coat of grandeur could cloak her spirit's vast form defined on this day and beyond. She had courage threaded within atypical steps walked grand indeed, enough to declare that here, in the mosaic of her narrative, harmony always stayed a hand of hope.